Vincent, read your article, which of course is always spot on, but I mean, so much chatter behind the scenes with this trade. Jeannie Buss was on the show a couple days ago. She mentioned that she knew 2 weeks out. What's your takeaway, number one, from the trade, and then number two, from the first meeting?
Well, I think the first meeting, I'll start there. The first meeting, it felt, guys, like a playoff game. But it was like a playoff game for an audience of one. It was weird because LA is so big and it's cavernous and everybody knows it's like the place you want to go for a big event, right? Like a championship sort of fight. But Luka Doncic is the only person with beef over there. Everybody else is happy, that he's in LA, with the exception of Anthony Davis. I will tell you this: the chance of "Thank You, Nico" while you're playing the "Thank You, Anthony Davis" video seemed a little weird to me. I don't know about y'all, that type of thing. But as far as the trade itself, I think we're still sort of getting with the idea that the Dallas Mavericks said, you know what, Luka, despite all the things that you've meant to us, and you could have been the next Dirk Nowitzki, another 20-year guy, there are some things that we saw with you that we did not feel like would be rectified over the next couple of years, over the next few months, like whatever the communication breakdown was between the two. Like, I don't think it's just about Luka Doncic and drinking beer and stuff like that. It's usually more than that, right? It's never as simple as it seems. And the Lakers are just the benefactors because the Lakers always seem to benefit from, everybody else's misfortune. It's funny how stars just seem to matriculate their way to Los Angeles. It's like coincidental, right?
I mean, he just happened to find himself at the other end of the 10. I don't know how that happened. And you look at what the Lakers are doing, and this couldn't have just dropped into Rob Pelinka's lap.
Yeah, it did. Now, here's what happened. The one thing that people, I think, are missing when you're talking about the Dallas Mavericks, they were not looking to start over. I think if you're looking to start over and you want to trade Luka for whatever reason, you're disillusioned with him, then you open it up to the entire league and you say, give me your best offer. I want players and draft picks. That's not where the Dallas Mavericks sit. They sit having just gone to the NBA Finals and feeling like they know what the formula is to win an NBA championship, with bigs on the front line and shot making on the perimeter. Now, with Kyrie Irving and Klay Thompson, you're wondering, do they have the offensive firepower to make up for everything that Luka was not going to bring? And does Anthony Davis do that? Anthony Davis is a top 10 player in the NBA. We are treating him like he is chopped liver. It is the most amazing thing in the world that we are looking at Anthony Davis like he is just like some regular dude. Now, it doesn't help that he's not playing right now. It does not help that he routinely has gotten hurt throughout the course of his career. But you can see the thought of, if you're...
Some men are always 47. The iconic American actor Gene Hackman, who died at his home in Santa Fe at 94 years old this week, was one of those men. He had what felt like a hard-earned, forthright grouchiness that permeated his most memorable roles. He wasn't exactly mean, but he was tough, direct, mischievous, but dangerous. You didn't fuck with Gene Hackman. His characters almost always expressed world weariness, a sarcastic intelligence, and below the surface, a deep, deep sadness. He was the kind of actor we like to call soulful, and though he wasn't exactly a matinee idol, his gruff exterior and barely hidden anguish made him one of the great stars of the new Hollywood in the late 1960s and 70s. He was a grown-up who thrived in grown-up movies with grown-up ideas. For a generation of moviegoers that wanted to be older, not younger than it was, he played creeps, cranks, coaches, cops, crooks, colonels, con men, corporate titans. When you were watching Hackman, no matter the quality of the material, you always felt like you were watching a movie. Hackman lived a lot of life before he became a fixture of Hollywood for decades. After an itinerant childhood, he enlisted in the Marines at 16, lying about his age, in the immediate aftermath of World War II. He studied journalism on the GI Bill. He befriended a young actor after moving to California at the Pasadena Playhouse in the late 1950s named Dustin Hoffman. They were voted by their classmates the least likely to succeed. After nearly a decade of bit parts in television, off-Broadway theater work, and the very occasional supporting movie role, he broke through in just about the most perfect movie possible. 1967's Bonnie and Clyde, a watershed film that ushered in a new, grittier, more swaggering era of movie making. It featured Hackman in a supporting role as Clyde's older brother Buck. Hackman was 37 years old when his breakthrough film was released. He earned an Oscar nomination for his work in the movie, the first of 5 nominations. He went on to 2 wins, putting him in a rare class of actor. Bonnie and Clyde is an undeniable work. Here's 10 more essential Hackman roles to seek out in his memory. The first, of course, is The French Connection. Hackman's first Oscar win came for his role as Popeye Doyle, the hard-charging, relentless, perpetually unsatisfied detective in William Friedkin's first masterpiece. My father was, like Doyle, a narcotics detective, and Hackman's work really shows the ugliness of that life, the maniacal commitment and duplicity and subterranean rage that fuels so many men in the profession. The next pick is Scarecrow. Thanks to the more audacious material on offer, there are many great actors who flourished in the first half of the 1970s. I think of Jon Voight, Jack Nicholson, Robert Redford, Robert De Niro, Hoffman, Burt Reynolds, Bruce Lee, Richard Pryor. Very rarely would the energies of 2 of these figures collide in one movie. They did in 1973's Scarecrow, a road dramedy starring Hackman and Al Pacino at the peak of their powers. It's a sort of loose Of Mice and Men riff that finds a playful, soft-hearted Pacino as a guy named Lion, teaming up and quarreling with Hackman's short-tempered Max. They're absolutely magical together in this lesser-known Jerry Schatzberg movie. I encourage you to go seek it out immediately. Just 1 year later, he was in The Conversation, and despite securing 3 nominations, including Best Picture, Hackman was somehow overlooked for a Best Actor nomination in Francis Ford Coppola's other masterpiece, The Conversation. It's a movie about an obsessed surveillance expert named Harry Call, who slips into a rabbit hole of desperation. This is the quietest and saddest Hackman movie. It's about a broken man lost in the sauce, blown on his sacks amidst the destruction of his own work. Hackman was always really good at playing men on a mission, but he was better still when the mission was doomed. 1974's Young Frankenstein. Don't let all that intensity fool you. Hackman was fucking funny. Just look at Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein, where Hackman gets an extended cameo as a blind priest who at the end of his life is visited by Peter Boyle's Frankenstein, and they quickly form a curious bond. Hackman is hilarious in this movie, just like he's hilarious in movies like Get Shorty and The Birdcage. He probably didn't get to work this muscle as much as he deserved to, but he's always funny when he tries. Then there's 1975's Night Moves. One thing I like about 70s movies is how gross and honest they are about what a spinning ball of garbage the world is. Just take Night Moves. It's Hackman's reunion with the Bonnie and Clyde director Arthur Penn. It's a sweaty neo-noir about an LA private investigator named Harry Mosby. Hackman was always playing guys named Harry, who finds himself in a web of intrigue in Florida. This movie and this performance are so lived in and toxic and sad, and also this movie features one of the great endings of the decade. 1978's Superman. Let it be known that Hackman was not allergic to what we now call IP. For my money, he is the gold standard comic book villain. As Lex Luthor, he is menacing, charming, and downright evil, so fun to watch. This is how you do it in a tentpole movie. Take note, Marvel. Gene Hackman. The 1980s were a curious time for Hackman. Kevin Costner, who starred with Hackman in the sleazy, fun 1987 thriller No Way Out, called Hackman the best actor he'd ever worked with. He was fond of telling a story about a day on the set when he demanded things go a particular way for his character. Hackman approached him at the end of the day, and Costner feared he was about to be reamed out by the legendary star. In fact, Hackman just told him that it reminded him of how much he cared about acting in his work in the 70s. Hackman had gone through a divorce recently and took some paycheck jobs. Maybe watching Costner re-energized him. Hackman did some solid movies in the 90s like Uncommon Valor, Eureka, and Power. He was nominated for strong work in The Flawed Mrs. Singh, but he'll always be remembered as Coach Norman Dale in Hoosiers. He wasn't the greatest tactician as a coach, but he is the living embodiment of 1980s movie coach. Tough but sincere, smart but flawed, an underdog, but ultimately victorious. 1992's Unforgiven. What can you say about Little Bill Daggett, the meanest mother effer in a long career of them from Hackman? It's a quintessential performance about a man with sincere but mangled values. It won him an Oscar and also pointed the way for the final phase of his career. In the 90s, Hackman settled into what you might call a 1B. He could carry a movie by operating as a thrilling number two. He played opposite heavyweights like Eastwood, but more often found himself supporting young thrivers like Tom Cruise in The Firm, Sharon Stone in The Quick and the Dead, and Will Smith in Enemy of the State. The best of these 1B parts is in 1995's Crimson Tide, an uber-tense submarine thriller directed by Tony Scott, in which you can almost literally see Hackman passing the baton to Denzel Washington as his generation's not-to-be-messed-with leading man. They're dynamite together, sparking generational, racial, and intellectual tensions as a commanding officer losing his grip and the XO who seizes the reins to avoid global devastation. Hackman was 65 years old when this movie was made, and he is as fiery and full of wounded pride as he was at the very beginning of his career. The final pick is Wes Anderson's The Royal Tenenbaums. It's an all-time favorite movie for me, and one that neatly bridges the obvious parallels between the 1970s New Hollywood and the 1990s Sundance generation that were raised on Hackman's films. The actor plays the fake dying patriarch of a Salinger-esque New York family of misfits. It's probably the funniest and sweetest Hackman's ever been in a film. Anderson and Hackman reportedly didn't get on during the production, but you can never tell watching it. It's one of his final roles, and a wonderful way to remember him as a dashing rascal, a charmer, a firecracker who could go off at any minute. We'll miss you, Gene Hackman.
Can I give you my least favorite trades of the last 30 years? And I ranked these based on, and I went through, because I'd done a list. I was going to do a whole podcast about this, so I just kind of cherry picked from the list. But I was trying to think like trades I instinctively hated the most. And this is in no particular order. And then I'll end with the one I hated the most. When Toronto finally traded Vince Carter in 2004 for a bunch of crap, and they had to take Alonzo Mourning's contract back and all that stuff. I was like, that trade's terrible. Like you can't feel like you have to trade Vince Carter that badly that you actually not only made your team worse short term, but you didn't even get cap flexibility, good picks, anything. I hated that trade. T-Mac for Steve Francis, Coutinho Mobley, and Kelvin Cato was just an insane trade. Like, can you think of Orlando knowing what we know now in 2022 and T-Mac's on the block? What would that would have been more than the Gobert trade, right? That would have been like 5 first and 2 pick swaps, but everybody was a moron in the mid 2000s. Your guy Barkley, that trade was reprehensible the moment it happened.
To Phoenix?
Yeah, Hornacek, Tim Perry.
I like Tim Perry a little
Andrew
bit.
No, that trade was like, wow, you just traded one of the best 5 guys. You traded one of the best 6 guys in the league. You got nothing back. What are you doing? 2 firsts for Eddie Curry was iconically bad immediately. Remember that?
Yeah, because then they also had to pay Eddie Curry too.
Yeah. And it was and we're paying him $60 million.
And apparently the Eddie Curry thing with the Knicks was, well, nobody wants to do this deal, and we don't want to do the deal until we get this heart test thing done. And Isaiah was like, well, we don't need you to take any heart test.
Right. No, we're fine. We'll look the other way. This is a personal one for me and House, but when Washington traded the 5th pick in the 2009 draft for Randy Foye and Mike Miller, I actually thought House was going to just leave the country. He was so upset. I was upset for him. It was the
Game 1 of the finals, starting with that foul, with like 30 seconds left in regulation, or when the charge and got flipped. He's the maddest I've ever seen him. And then in the OT, the game slipping away, and he like blocked you and he talked shit to you. I thought you guys were going to fight. Because I was sitting right under that basket. I was like, holy shit, they're going to fight for like 2 seconds.
That's why I said NBA pettiness is at an all-time high.
Yeah.
Both sides, it was never going to spill over to that, but it was a interesting moment with all that had going on in game 1.
You went right at him though.
I know I was hot because I was trying to finish out a possession. I think it was less than a minute left. I didn't see him coming over from the weak side, so I tried to do a little soft scoop layup, and he pinned it.
But
Recording in progress.
That's the problem. So we have two functions. F of x minus 3, g of x squared minus 9 over x plus 3. So do we realize that those two functions are different? Why are they different?
The domain is different.
Perfecto. Yes, the domain is different. This one, if I see that on the streets or on any class, the domain is all reals. Minus infinity to infinity. Perfect. This one has a puncture. So I put a fence right there. Domain right here is minus infinity to -3. Union -3 to infinity. So they are different as functions. They are the same as algebraic expressions right there. Because if I were to do algebra, I can simplify that one. So as an algebraic expression, right there. Right there. In algebra world, of course, in algebra world, one is a polynomial, the other one is not a polynomial right there. But if I'm going to simplify symbols, they are the same right there. But of course, also as algebraic expressions, right there, the x minus 3, it's a polynomial. And the x squared, it's a ratio. That one, it's a ratio of polynomials. So it's a rational function right there, or a rational expression right there. So it's a ratio of polynomials. But when I'm doing algebra, they are the same if I'm going to simplify right there. Happiness with that right there. Happiness. Okay, perfect. That was what the author wanted to. So right there, rational function. Right there. So perfect. Okay, let me see. We need section 4.5. We need that theorem. We need the quotient remainder theorem. So I'll put it right here. Section 4.5, quotient remainder theorem. Right there. In full splendor. So let's go and write the conditional statement here. Well, it's an existential statement. So given I'll use the same notation in the textbook. Given an integer n, given any integer n and a positive integer d, and a positive integer D, comma. And here comes the existential. So this is universal existential. There exists unique. So the symbol for there exists unique is like this. There exists, and an exclamation point is there exists unique. But I'm not going to write that, but that's the way to write it. If you wanted to write it with symbols, there exists unique. I leave it. There exists unique integers. Right there, Q and R. So universal existential, Q and R. You can see that R is going to be the remainder. Right there. So perfect. And Q, well, that's it there. And Q is the quotient, but let's go. And here we have the relationship. The first one, N, it's equal to DQ plus R, right there. DQ plus R. I forgot to put the such that. Let me see. I'll write the such that, and then I write the N equals to DQ plus R. Such that. And here is the punchline. N, it's equal to DQ plus R. But that's not enough. That is only the existential part. We need the uniqueness. What's going to give us the uniqueness is the inequality on the remainder. The remainder is bounded, is trapped. The remainder is trapped. It could be 0, but it could be all the way to be less than the divisor, right there. So we need those two. They complement each other. They're as important, right there. So then we can take a look at some examples. Right there. Let me see. Let's come up with this examples. Suppose N is 54 and D is 4. Then get is guaranteed to exist. Get Q and R. Get Q and the remainder, right there. So these type of examples are get the Q and get the remainder. That they're guaranteed by this theorem, and the theorem doesn't have exceptions. So it's guaranteed by this theorem, the existence of the unique Q and R. We are dividing by 4. So we are chopping the integers by 4. We are jumping by 4, and then we have some remainder. We have some left over, which is less than 4. That's what the theorem is saying. At the moment that you divide by D, D is playing the role of 4. So you are chopping by groups of 4. And sometimes you have remainder 0, meaning that you chop to perfection. And that sometimes you have a remainder 1, remainder 2, or remainder 3. On this one, we chop 54 into pieces, and then we better have some remainder, some left over, or we might not. Depends. Is 54 a multiple of 4? No, it's not. So there is going to be some remainder out right there. So perfect. And since they're both even, well, better be 2 right there. So what's Q? What's Q? Gracias. Q is 13. And the remainder?
2.
2. Thank you. And we did this in 2nd grade. But of course, we didn't do it with the quotient remainder theorem, because otherwise I would have dropped 2nd grade right there. Yeah. But again, we did this. We're making it formal. What we did in 2nd grade. We're making it with formality right there. So perfect. Let's play another one. So this is the first one. Right there. Let's play another example. Another example could be negative 54. And D is equal to 4. Right there. So this one is also get the guaranteed existence of Q and R.
I think your mic might be muted.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, perfect. Okay. I don't want to put the things. Yeah. I'm not sure if they have enough battery. So can you hear me okay? At the moment that you can, yeah, perfect. Thank you. So what's Q? What's Q?
Negative 13?
Negative 13. Okay, we can check it. Right there. Suppose it's negative 13. Then we want to play the game N. It's equal to DQ plus R. So N is equal to, of course, we know the N. The N is negative 54. The D is 4. And then we put the negative 13, and then we need to get the remainder right there. And what is the remainder?
Negative 2.
What, Patel?
Negative.
Saumya? I couldn't hear you.
Negative 2.
Oh, look at the problem. The remainder needs to be trapped. If you put a negative 2 right there, I recall that the remainder need to be trapped, and it has to be trapped between 0 and the divisor. So no, right there, I'll put it, for the moment, I'll put a sad face right there. Because this is very important, that inequality. So it's not negative 13. It's not a big deal. If it's not negative 13, what better be?
The quotient is minus 14.
Minus 14. Let's check it. Minus 14, because then we'll check on the remainder. Let's see. So it's not a big deal. Better we pass it through the negative side. And now the remainder is
4.
4. What, 4? No. I cannot have remainder 4.
I think it's 2.
2. Perfect. So this is not trivial. But there I put a smiley face. I just put a smiley face. It happened that we are achieving that. The remainder is trapped right there. So perfect, we got it. Q is negative 14. And the remainder is 2. Perfect. So we have that example. One more example. We'll put a fence. Let me put a fence on this example there for our notes there. And one more example where they give us D is 70 and N is 54 there. And then we need to come up with get Q. and R.
Q is the yoga.
Perfect. Yeah, Francis. Yeah. Okay. Let me come right here. I'll write the D Q plus R, and we have 54 equal to 70 Q plus R. And I agree with Francis. Francis is saying that Q is 0. And then if Q is 0, R better be, remember that, whatever R is, better be less than 70. So R is, what is R?
54.
54, perfect. And then let me circle that. We found both right there. So the existence is guaranteed of these two elements, the Q and the R. And then, of course, you can find them in your computer, in Python, in R, in BASIC, right there, in Fortran. There is in your computer, it will calculate it under NDiv D, that's equal to, and then let me just do the first example where N was 54 and the D was 4. So if somebody tells you 54 div 4, you get Q right there. And in this case, Q is 13. And if you do 54 mod 4, then you get the remainder, which is 2. So N mod D is remainder. So let me circle those two right there. And we're using the symbol equality right there. Right there. Right there. So in some languages, they will have that. In Fortran, they have that. In Python, they have that. So you can get the integer part and you can get the remainder, the leftover. We're going to take a look at a different type of mod right now. Right there. Let me see. We're going to take a look at this. This is slightly different. It looks like this. It looks like X. It's equivalent to Y mod D, let's say, or mod N. That's different. It's a new definition what I'm going to give you. So is this Y equivalent, X equivalent to Y mod D means, by definition, anybody writes that. Can you see? Here I had an equal sign. Here I have an equivalent sign. They're different. So this is what it means. It means that D divides X minus Y. It's a divisibility definition. Let me put definition. Of course, what are X's and Y's? X's and Y's are integers. And D, it's a positive integer. So let me say it. X and Y are in Z. Right there, are integers. And D is a positive integer. D is in C+, right there. Happiness with that. Perfect. So now we can start proving some things. as soon as they gave me this definition, I remember, as soon as they gave me this definition, I tried to memorize it right away because I better memorize definitions. So I took a look at this and I look at the order. I said, well, X minus Y. The order is X minus Y. So here comes the first theorem. If X it's equivalent to Y mod D or mod N, comma, then Y it's equivalent to X mod N, right there. So that is the first right there theorem that we could potentially prove. So remember, as soon as I see this, my brain triggers this idea that N divides X minus Y. And as soon as I see this, my brain triggers this idea that N must divide Y minus X. Right there. Can you see what we have to prove? So basically what we have to prove is that if N divides X minus Y, then N divides Y minus X. Right there. Happiness with that? Questions? Perfect. So let's go and prove it. Prove. Assume X it's equivalent to Y mod D, mod N, comma. Well, that's it. Our first complete sentence. By definition, comma, N divides X minus Y. So X minus Y, it's equal to NQ for some Q in Z. Right there. Happiness with that? Perfect. And now I need to consider right there. What am I going to consider? Let's go all the way up.
You consider Y minus X.
Perfect. Consider Y minus X. I would just not continue the proof if I don't bring the right expression. So that's a moment in the argument where you make a pause and you need to act wisely. And Ansley just acted wisely. Bring the Y minus X right there. Otherwise, you are stopped in your argument with nowhere to go. Right there. So perfect. Let me go and just highlight that. I will highlight it in yellow and I'll put it right there. So it's a crucial move. Right there. Bring the Y minus X and you want to show that N divides Y minus X. And then you'll say, well, once you prove that, and that at the end will be that Y is equivalent to X mod N. So that's it. Consider Y minus X. Consider the expression Y minus X. There. Period. At this moment, you could say what you want to show. We want to show that y, did I have it in the radar? Yeah, I want to show that y, it's equivalent to x mod n. Right there. You can even put it in brackets if you want to, like Susanna, right there. I don't put it in brackets, but you can put it in those brackets, that comment, like that. So then you can say, in order to achieve that, it suffices to show that n divides y minus x, right there. You can say it that way, yeah. In order to achieve that outcome, in order to show that, we must show that n divides y minus x. So I'll say that. In order to complete the proof. To complete the proof. To complete the argument. It suffices to show that n divides y minus x. To complete the argument, we must show that n divides y minus x. So we are going to do it from the equation right here. We're going to do it from right there. So perfect. We have that. That's the only thing we have. So we can multiply, we can use that equation, multiply both sides by -1. Right there. Can you see? That's the only thing we have. I'm going to multiply both sides by -1 to reverse the order. Recall that we have x minus y equal to nq for some q in Z. By algebra, we get, and then x minus y equal to nq, and then multiply both sides by -1. Right there. That will be y minus x equal to n q. Right there. Since we have that negative q is in Z, thus n divides y minus x. So y, it's equivalent to x mod n as desired. Right there. Happiness with that. And I'll put the box. Right there. Happiness. So what is this modular arithmetic? Well, it's a clock. It's a clock arithmetic right there. So the idea is that the numbers are not going to get very large. So when we think of mod 5, it's a planet that has 5 hours. So the integers got chopped, like we did last class, into 5 pieces. And then there you get the multiples of 5. The multiples of 5 plus 1. The multiples of 5 plus 2. The multiples of 5 plus 3. The multiples of 5 plus 4. We call this one the multiples of 5, that class. That class. That class. That class. And that class right there. And we can put some representatives if you want to. But the ones that live in this class, all of them, all the x's that live in that class are x equivalent to 1 or 0 mod 5. The ones that live on the second class, x it's equal to 1 mod 5. And so on. Right there. And let me just go really fast and switch pencils, just in case, right there with my other laptop. Right there, because, and then of course, so let me put all the classes right there. The next one will be x, it's equal to 2 mod 5. So the next one, x equivalent to 3 mod 5. And the last one, x equivalent to 4 mod 5. Right there. So we have the 5 equivalence classes. So in number theory, we call it equivalence classes. In abstract algebra, in modern algebra, abstract algebra, they are called cosets. Right there. They are called cosets in that class. But in the number theory, they are called equivalence classes. Right there. It depends what are you talking about and how would you refer to them in the context of the conversation. Right there. But we just chop the integers into 5 infinite sets. Right there. Happiness with that. And that will have tons of applications in computer science. Tons of applications. Okay. But the 0 is here. The 1 is here. The 2 is here. The 3 is here. The 4 is here. But of course, here we have the 5, the negative 15, and so on. And we can fill that class. We can fill it right there. Happiness with that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why I know we already talked about this a little bit, but I must have missed it. Why are we using an equivalent sign when we're using the mod instead of an equal sign?
Oh, okay. I use the mod right here because look. When I come right here, let's go all the way up here. When I define the first mod that came from the quotient remainder theorem, all the way up here, that one. What can you tell me about the remainder?
It's less than D.
Yes. Less than D. It's always positive or 0. The remainder is always positive or 0. But let's go to this mod, the one that has equivalent, the one that has the equivalent sign. Let me show you this. But thank you for your question, Ansley. Perfect question. Right there. Let's come right here. Look what I'm going to do. Right there. There I had the remainder right here. But let me take a look at this one. I'm going to grab the negative 15. And I'm going to grab a 20 right there. And look how I'm going to use it. That one was equality. This one is a logical statement. It's a 1 or a 0. Look, I'm going to write this. Minus 15, it's equivalent to 20 mod 5. Look what I wrote. on the left-hand side, that cannot possibly be a remainder because it's a negative 15. Can you see what I'm saying there? Whatever is on that negative 15 is definitely not a remainder. Okay, it's not a remainder. And this is saying negative 15 and 20 are in the same class, because if you try to divide, okay, minus 15 minus 20, you'll get a remainder of 0. And you are in the class that has remainder 0. So this is a yes or a no question. It's a logical statement. It's saying, are you lying to me or not? Is it really that negative 15 and 20 are in the same equivalence class? And the answer is yes, or even a 1 right there. Then let's go to another equivalence class. Suppose here I have a 32. See out. There. Suppose I have a 32 right here. And somebody put a negative 14. Somebody just put a negative 14. So I would like to ask the question, is 32 in the same class as negative 14? So can you see that I'm not using the equal sign? My question is 32 and negative 14 in the same equivalence class? And that translates with symbols as asking this question: is 32 equivalent to minus 14 mod 5? And I can check if that's true by only one move. Does 5 divide 32 minus 14? Right there. Question. Right there. So that will be a yes or a no question. And is it yes or no?
No.
No. So 32 and negative 14 are not in the same equivalence class. So one is out. One is out. Which one is out of that class?
Negative.
Yeah, gracias. I'll take that one and just tell it, go to your class. Right there. And it's definitely not the 3, but I will land it to its class right there. So the previous mod is only for remainder, and it has to be positive all the time. And it's not asking a question about equivalence classes. It's only asking the question, what is the leftover? Right there when you divide by some D. Okay with that? Okay. So they're different. They're quite different right there. The one up here, that one is very limited, doesn't have lots of applications. It's only asking, give me the remainder. What is the leftover? So it's a positive integer, the answer. What is the leftover when I divide by D? By D right there. Perfect. And doesn't have that many applications. I'm not going to write a theorem about that, but that is that one. And I had confusion the first time they gave them to me. They never explained them. They gave me both at the same time. And I thought that they were the same right there, but they're not. They're not the same. Okay with that, because the remainder cannot be negative. So perfect. Let's prove another thing. Look at this one. We can prove this one. So So what we just proved right here is called symmetry. So this operation is symmetric. So if X is related to Y, Y is related to X, right there. Can you see how we swap the order? So it has the property of symmetry. Right there. So I'm seeing this as an equivalence relation by living in the same class, right there. X is related to Y because they're in the same equivalence class. Let's take a look at this one, this new property. If X is equivalent to Y mod N, and Y it's equivalent to Z mod N, comma, then what am I going to write next?
X is equivalent to Z mod N?
Yes, yes. And what am I going to call that property?
Transitive property?
Yes, transitivity. Just like the transitive argument from the test. Right there. That was the last question in the test. Right there. Yeah. X, it's equivalent to Z mod N. So this is an equivalence relation, and it has the property of transitivity right here. Let me write it. Transitivity right there. Let's go and prove it right there. But we're going to use the same definition. So let's go prove. Assume the hypothesis. Right there. So assume X it's equivalent to Y mod N, and Y it's equivalent to Z mod N. So you know what we're going to say next. By definition, N divides X minus Y. N divides Y minus Z. So let me write them tiny right there. My brain is already thinking of that. That means N divides X minus Y. That means N divides Y minus Z. So that's it. I'm already thinking about that. So I'm going to say by definition, N divides X minus Y, N divides Y minus Z, and I'm going to get two equations. I will get two equations. They're coming. Then I need to put the two equations and come up with a conclusion. Namely that X is equivalent to Z mod N. So let's go for it. This is really, really nice. It has lots of applications in internet security, in cryptology, meaning cryptography, right there. So you open a book in cryptography, right there, trying to hide messages, and it's the first 10 pages are going to talk about this potentially. This has also applications in this class. That class right there. Automata right there. So perfect. So let me go right there. And in a linguistics class also. So let me go there. By definition, comma, N divides x minus y, and n divides y minus z. So we get x minus y being equal to nq for some q in z. We also get that y minus z, it's equivalent, equal, and L for some L in Z, right there. And we are going to use those two equations to reach our outcome very, very soon. So now is the moment where we need to consider. So we go all the way to the top. I'll write consider. And then we'll go all the way to the top. What do we need to consider?
Y minus Z.
Oh.
Do we need to consider the whole thing?
We need to. Oh, okay. But you said y minus z, Ansley. Oh, x minus z, minus z, right here. Let me see. I'm looking at this one. Let me make it in red. I'm looking at this one, which is the punchline. And what we need to show is that n divides x minus z. We are showing with fancy symbols that we need to show that n divides y minus z, x minus z, right there. Happiness? Perfect. So let's play. Let's play with that one right there. Consider, I'll write it more to the, consider right there. X minus z, right there. We want to show that x, we want to show x, it's equivalent to z mod n, right there. So take a look at the equations that we have above. And I'll bring it back. I'll bring them down. X minus y equal to nq. Y minus z equal to NL. And I can do whatever I please with those two equations. Algebraically, whatever I please. But I want to get out of those two equations x minus z. How can I manipulate those two equations at the same time to get x minus z?
Would you treat them as a system of equations and solve for like y or?
I could potentially do that, but I'm allowed to add those two equations. Can you see? Am I allowed to add the equations? They are an equality. You can add the equations, meaning I can do elimination if I want, but I don't want to do elimination because if I add them, what will cancel to perfection that I want out of the picture? What variable do I want out of the picture?
Y.
Yeah, and if I add them, The y is gone right there. We got lucky. Sometimes we have to do something more fancy, but on this one, we got lucky. Can you see? Sometimes it could be staring at you in the face and we don't see it, but we see it later. It's math. Because sometimes, yeah, okay, without that's the case. So add the equations. Take a look at the two equations and which are right there. Take a look at those equations there. And by algebra, we get right there x minus y plus y minus z equal to NQ plus NL. And then draw parentheses. And then factor right there. Cancel the y's. Right there. So we can see, oh, I'm sorry, put an N right there, X. Right there. And you can see what comes next. You have to say something about closure, that Q and L are in Z. Right there, and then you got it. We got that N divides that. For a second, while you're saying that, for a second, let me take a look at attendance. For 2 seconds, I'm just gonna take a glance at the attendance right there. Even though I have a Zoom report, but I'm just glancing at the attendance for 2 seconds. Perfect. Let me go back. Right there. So I'll share with you. Perfect. So that's it. See that. See that Q plus L are in Z by closure. Thus, N divides X minus Z. And X is equivalent to Z mod N as desired. And then put the box. The little there. And let me check the top for a second. So we just proved transitivity. Perfect. So the properties of this operation are 3 properties. Transitivity, symmetry, we prove symmetry. And the other one is, we prove symmetry right here. The other one is reflexive. Let me tell you what reflexive is. That's not difficult to prove. For all x's in Z and D, N in Z plus, comma, X, it's equivalent to X mod N. Can you see that that's not difficult to prove, that one? Because you only need to show that N divides X minus X. So you can say that this is reflexive. Reflexivity. Well, the proof is simple because you say, well, assume X is in Z comma, and it's in C+. It is evident that n divides x minus x, n divides 0 right there. Since x minus x, it's equal to 0, which is equal to n times 0 right there. Happiness with that. So 3 properties with that operation, with modular arithmetic, reflexive, symmetric, and transitive right there. And there are many relations that they have those 3 properties. There are many relations. It's not the only. So we're seeing that as a relation right there. Oh, let me. Okay, we have around 14 minutes. I need to take a look at an algorithm that comes from the quotient remainder theorem. It's called the Euclidean algorithm. Right there. So it's an algorithm that is going to give us the GCD, the greatest common divisor. So let me give you an example. Find the greatest common divisor between 188 and 158 right there. So we'll have an algorithm that will solve. It will give us the greatest common divisor between 188 and 158. As soon as we find the GCD, we will also be able to solve that equation. It's called a Diophantine equation. All the time on the way from the time of the Greeks, all the Mediterranean, the Phoenicians, the Egyptians. I'm solving that equation over the integers, not over the real numbers. Okay, with that, I'm solving that equation over the integers right there. If you go to your tutor and your tutor hasn't been doing this type of math, and you ask your tutor to solve this, over the integers, not the real numbers, your tutor might not be able to do it if he hasn't taught discrete math or number theory. Can you see? We usually solve equations over their divisors. I want to find the largest one, common to both.
Got you. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So let's go and do it. Let's start the algorithm. Here it comes. In the textbook, Susana is doing the algorithm a little bit messy. So I'm not going to do it messy. I'm going to do it organized. So please look at your notes. Don't look at Susana. The book is perfect, but only in this little topic, it's a little bit messy right there. So let me go. Solution. $188, it's equal to 158 times Q plus the remainder. Can you see that I'm going to use the quotient remainder theorem? I need to find the Q. I need to find the R. So this is an application of the quotient remainder theorem, one of the best applications. So what's Q and what's R?
$130.
Oh, Q is one, yeah. Q is 1. And the remainder is 13. Happiness with that. Perfect. Next.
330, not 30.
30. Okay, 30. I'm sorry. I heard, yeah. My pleasure, we. Is that a true statement, what I wrote? Perfect. Next. Here comes the algorithm. I'm going to put an arrow. Susana doesn't have the arrows. The 158 goes there. And the 30 goes there. And now I'll rewrite it again. 158, it's equal to 30 times plus right there. And I'll throw the arrows again. Susana doesn't have the arrows. And we need the arrows to solve the Diophantine. Let me call it Diophantine while you are just finding those two numbers. We are trying to solve the Diophantine equation from Diophantus. It's a mathematician. At least find one solution. It could have more than one, but we're going to be able to find one solution. What is the Q and the R?
Five and 8.
5 and 8, perfect. Now, look at my arrows. The red, oh, let me put the equality. The red arrow. The yellow arrow. Right there. So here we go again. Here I'm going to put the 30. Here I'm going to put the 8. And then I need the Q. Plus I need the remainder. Right there.
Three and 6.
Gracias. And 6. And then the arrows again. The red one. The yellow one. And one more arrows and we're done. Because on this one, the remainder will be 0. Right there. 6 and 2. Right there. And then I'll write that one. 3 and 0. So right here is the GCD. That's the greatest common divisor right there. Right above the one that has 0. And in the future, we'll prove it. We can prove the algorithm, why it works. But you can see that it's a repeated application of the quotient remainder theorem. Now, here comes the Diophantine. We have the GCD. This is the GCD of, let me put the arrow. So we just found this is that's the greatest common divisor of 188 and 158. Right there, we have it. So let's go and get the equation here on the side. Now we're going to solve the Diophantine equation. Here it comes. The Diophantine equation is we had it there, 188x plus 158 y equals to 2. We're going to solve it. So start looking at this. Now we're going to go backwards. People call this the backwards of the Euclidean algorithm. We're going backwards. To solve it, we grab this one. We grab this one here. Let me highlight it. I'm going to put it in green. Oh, this one. I'm going to grab that one. Look what I'm going to write. 2. It's equal to 8 minus 6 times 1. Can you see what I did? I just massaged that algebraically. Is that true? That's a true statement. I grabbed it from that line. And now I'm going to replace the 6. I will replace the 6 by the 30 minus 8 times 3. The 6. Is going to be replaced by the information above. The 6 is a remainder. I'm rewriting that remainder as a 30 minus 8 times 3. So that was a plugin on the remainder. And then I need to do some chugging. In computer science, chugging is rearranging. It's not simplifying, but rearranging. So how many 8s do I have?
Two?
I think I have 4 because it's a minus times a minus. How many 8s? It's an optical illusion sometimes, but look, I have a negative right there and a negative right there. So that's a minus right there. Happiness with that. So that's it. Let me rearrange it. So I have 4 8s. And how many 30s?
One.
130. There, perfect. Now I'm done. I'm done with the remainder 6. But now I'm going to solve for the next remainder. What is the next remainder going backwards? I finished with the 2. I finished with the 6. The next remainder is
8.
8. I'm going to rewrite 8 as, this is the plug, as 158 minus 30 times 5. Minus 30. That is called the plug. Can you see that I wrote the 8 by whatever was telling me on that second line of the Euclidean algorithm? 8 is equal to 158 minus 30 times 5. That was the plugging. And now I need to do some chugging. How many 30s I have?
$21.
21. Yeah, minus 21 30s. How many 158s I have? Cuatro. Gracias. Perfect. One more line. What is my next remainder? My last remainder. What is my last remainder?
It's 30.
30. I'm going to write 30 as what? What would you like to write 30 as? Well, I have it right there. Let me see.
188 minus 158.
Perfect. Yes, I'm going to write 30 as 188 minus 158, and I will be done with the operation. So it's something that I've never done before, except in this class and in number theory right there, because it doesn't feel like algebra right there. But I'm going to rewrite that 30 as a 188 minus a 158 right there. How many 188s I have?
One.
Oh, how many, Brandon?
Oh, wait, never mind. Is it 21?
21. Yeah, of course. Yes. I want to say so. 188 minus 21. How many 158s I have?
25.
25.
Yeah.
Yes. 25. That's it. I solved the equation. X is equal to negative 21. Y is equal to positive 25. Right there. So I solved the equation over the integers right there. So can you see that it feels weird? It's something that we haven't done before. How are we treating numbers as if they were variables right there in order to solve the Diophantine right there? Because it's not over the reals, it's over the integers. So it's difficult, but it's an older mathematical tool. It comes all the way from 200 BC right there. Happiness with that. So every time you perform, I'm sorry, it's 7:20. I must give you super freedom. But every time you perform the forward GCD, you can also solve the Diophantine that makes sense. That one, that linear combination of 188 and 158 equal to the GCD. Right? We call it a linear combination. 188 times X plus 158 times Y equals to the GCD. So not only a Diophantine equation, but a linear combination also. So over the integers. So I'll do another one next class. I'll do another practice next class right there. But super freedom.
Draft with Curry and Rubio, and it was like a really good draft. And it was just insane where Washington's going, we're so close. These are the last two pieces. Mike Miller and Randy Foye, and we're good. Now it's time to compete for a title. That was insane. The second Chris Paul trade, which I guess was the best they could do, but just felt like, man, Eric Gordon, who I really like, Eric Gordon's got to be awesome because Chris Paul had somehow become undervalued. And then my number one, I hated this trade. It still makes me mad. I can't believe it happened. 1996, Dallas trades Jason Kidd for Sam Cassell, Michael Finley, and AC Green. And it was because he wasn't getting along with Jim Clemens. They were running the fucking triangle with him. And it still is infuriating to me that they didn't understand what they had with Jason Kidd. They just made like the classic 3/4 for $1 trade. He was like 22 years old. In all of those cases, I was instantly revulsed by the trade, if that's even a word. And I felt the same way about the Gobert trade.
My first one is the one it was just, I remember being at a nursing home visiting my grandmother, and I was 10, and it was 86. And it was the Moses Malone. The Sixers could have had
that's
Moses
a great
Malone.
one, yeah.
It was, it's funny, those things that you remember so clearly. Like I don't know that it was a great thing health-wise to be 10 years old and just walking around the nursing home lighting up everybody, but that's what I would do. I would just get up and relight everybody, which I think is probably frowned upon now, being 10 and just sitting in a nursing home and then reading Reader's Digest because you're so fucking bored.
Yeah.
But we were watching the news on a little TV set, and you got to remember, like my first thing was loving those Sixers teams because it was Dr. J, and it was Moses, and then this Charles Barkley guy comes along. All right. So, I know this is always weird when everybody hears this and can't understand why I'm from New England, but like that was, when you're impressionable, you're a little kid, that's what I love most of anything. Fucking love Moses Malone. And I'm like, wait, the Sixers got the first pick with this team and they could have Moses, Brad Daugherty, and Charles Barkley. And it's like, no. Not only are we going to trade Moses Malone for Jeff Ruland and Cliff Robinson, the former Harlem Globetrotter, not Uncle Cliffy, they traded the number one pick, the rights to Brad Daugherty, for Roy Hinson, who played 100 games for the Sixers. That's
the most brutal combo trade in the history of the league, I think.
It doesn't get nearly enough credit as one of the worst trades in American sports history. Now, I did talk to somebody who was involved in it later on, and they said, there were some things that we needed to do to kind of shuffle around that you guys didn't know about. I'm like, well, yeah, 10, I definitely didn't know about any of those things. But like, it's kind of like, okay, so that was your only option? Like, think about that. Think about trading.
How about just take Brad Doherty? He was sitting right there. You could just drafted him first.
Yeah, and they were like, he had some back issues. You're like, what was Roy Hinson's? What were his pluses at that point?
Roy Hinson, these stuff. I forgot to mention the Pau Gasol trade, which almost goes without saying, but that trade almost felt like the league was fixed with that.
Well, that was the other one that I always want to point to because it's funny. Retroactively, that one feels like it's not as bad because
of what happened with Mark. Yeah.
But what you have to remember is I've never heard of a trade, at least in all my years of talking to teams. Again, it's not like I'm some reporter, but whatever. I've never heard more teams pissed off after a trade in my entire life of talking to people in the league.
It was 3 weeks before the deadline. Nobody knew he was available.
Nobody knew he was available. That's what people were so mad about. And everybody kind of knew. They're like, oh, this is a tough one to figure out. But they go, if you're going to do this shit, take some phone calls.
Right.
Like figure out what the market is. Pretend this isn't already wrapped up to LA.
It's terrible.
And I've never had teams more upset than that one.
came in the game right away. Instant offense, energy, knocks down the big three. Him and Nikola have a couple of really good two-man possessions right there. And he's done that for us all year long. Energy, defensive grit, and pace. And we're going to need more of that to try to get this win.
Thanks as always. Back to you.
Strawther just hit a shot. He has been struggling from the floor last couple games, just 2 of 8. Kevin Porter is in the game right now for Milwaukee. And he goes up high, and a try by Jericho Sims. Trice can't get it. The former Knick, who came here in a trade, can't convert. With Bobby Portis out, Sims now sees all that time, or a lot of it. Strawther inside, another runner. This time it will not go. And Porter's got it with Kuzma. They really want Kuzma and Porter to excel on offense in the absence of Lillard and out of the.
Captain America.
Way back in good old Stores.
Stores, Connecticut.
Making your first take debut. How are we feeling? Big time?
I feel great. I'm happy to be here, and I'm just ready to have some fun.
Listen, Get Up was just the warm up.
Oh.
So you buckle up for these.
First of all, welcome to the show, my brother. Welcome to the show. Happy to see you. Proud of you. The other thing that I want to say is this to the American people. Contrary to what you're seeing, we are not abusing Molly. I know she loaded up with Connecticut folks. She needs all the help she can get, but we have not been beating up on her. She just needs assistance, and that's why.
Okay, so
I got my bodyguard. We're good. We got this.
Hey, listen, at least there's 2 people in America that know where the hell Stores, Connecticut is. I mean, there's 2 people there. I'm just saying.
Banners on banners. Basketball capital of the world.
A lot of championships there.
Yeah, back to
Also a lot of farms.
There's a lot of farms. There's cows. There's ice cream. Al, you pipe down, Georgia. All right, let's dive into it, guys. Amid the Suns' struggles, a lot of blame has been pointed at Kevin Durant despite averaging his regular numbers. Katie's co-star, Devin Booker, meanwhile, is shooting his worst field goal percentage since the 2017-2018 campaign and lowest three-point percentage since 2020-2021. Phoenix is 11th in the West. Here's KD on his future.
I want my career to end on my terms. That's the only thing.
Bingo.
That's the only thing I'm worried about. I get why y'all want to trade me, and y'all looking at it just from the simple fact that's just business. But for me looking at it, I'm just like, it just don't make sense for either side right now to go through that. You know what I'm saying? When we just play the season out, and if that's the decision you want to make, in the off season, then you figure it out.
So be it. Yeah.
It's just such a big change to make, and I've been through it before. I was like, damn, that's not really it.
SA, what's your visceral reaction to what you just heard?
I understand where he's coming from, but I just think that, although I do understand it and we have to accept it, this is a future Hall of Famer, one of the greatest players in NBA history. A lot of times people are not taking into account that the expectations that come with greatness is a compliment to your greatness, not an insult to it. And when you think about Kevin Durant and what he's saying, you can't tell me that any basketball purist wants to hear what he said in that regard. You want to see and hear Kevin Durant talking about how he wants to chase a championship, how he's still starving to capture the trophy again. That's what you want to hear him saying, as opposed to where it's comfortable, how you don't want to move in midseason, how things can be a bit chaotic if you go from one location to another. Kevin Durant is one of those rare talents. It don't matter where he goes, he can fit in. I don't care what team in the NBA you pick. Kevin Durant coming to your squad is an additive. It's a plus. It's not a minus. That's the greatness that he brings to the table. And so when you look at it from that standpoint and you hear him talking about really not wanting to be moved in season, not wanting to be traded in season or what have you, and you hear players reacting to that in a very positive fashion, what they're talking about is sustaining and maintaining a level of control where the team doesn't have control over you. You're controlling your own future. All of us want that. There's no crime in that. I'm simply saying, considering his greatness, watching it wither away in Houston, who's not even in the play-in tournament if the season were to begin today, is an incredible disappointment. And you don't want to hear somebody of his caliber pointing to that and shoving that aside for the issues of comfort. That's where I come from, Wendy.
Rudy, where are you on this?
Obviously, what we saw was a candid conversation between, former teammates and all that stuff. So I think he was being very candid about his feelings and all that stuff. But we are talking about Kevin Durant, the Hall of Famer, and also the 37-year-old Kevin Durant. Yeah. So any team that is going to make a decision to try to move him and take him on is going to have to give up a lot because of what he's done now. I personally don't see too many teams willing to do that, besides the teams that need to make that little push. Now, we talked about it earlier about which teams they were, but I mean, you know, like you said, he is a Hall of Famer first ballot, I believe.
Easily.
I know him personally. He's been one of the hardest people for me to ever guard. But I do also think that at this point, it's only a certain amount of teams that
because of his age.
Because of his age, and you know, like this is a young man's league now, and you got to move a lot of people for that guy, and you have to have a plan.
Wendy?
I don't 100% buy his reasoning that the reason he didn't want to go to Golden State was because they had to trade too much for him. I mean, that may be partially true. They were going to have to acquire Jimmy Butler and then move Jimmy Butler to Phoenix, so that was part of the move. Like, he's correct. And by the way, it kind of shows an awareness and a learning, because when he got traded to Phoenix, they had to trade a crazy amount for him. But I also think that he had his other reasons. But what I think is more interesting to me is that he's given the Suns a bit of a pass. As far as I know, the Suns were well into negotiations to trade him when he didn't know that. Now, when he found out about it, he stopped it, and the Warriors respected his decision. And I do think that's interesting. But this is at least the second time he could have gone after the Suns for going about it without letting him know. And instead, he's been chill about it. And I suspect that's because he intends to work with them this summer to do what he just said, which is to end his career on his terms. So to me, the Suns are going through the motions, and he's going, trying to rally them. It's not working. One of the big storylines of the summer is where Kevin Durant is going to want to end on his terms.
I'm sorry, I found his statements to Draymond to be the most relatable thing Kevin Durant has ever said. That same excuse is why I cancel on all of my friends when they call and say, you've got to go to this amazing event. I'm like, that sounds cool, but I got to put on shoes and get dressed and please earn that right. I'm with Wendy. I think that this is not Golden State. I know that he said on that same podcast, mocked the critics that say he didn't want to go back to Golden State because of all of the crap that he got when he was there before, and the idea that he has some kind of issue with their medical staff. I know he said none of that is true. I don't believe him. I also don't believe him when he says that he wanted to see where this thing could go with Phoenix. The man is still doing very Kevin Durant things. He's averaging over 27 points per game. He's shooting 40% from three-point range, and they are still losing. They've still lost 9 of their last 11. But what you want to hear from a guy of his caliber, a surefire Hall of Famer, one of the greatest players, to me, someone who perfected the position. You want to hear him say that he is in pursuit of a championship everywhere he goes, but I don't think there's anything wrong with him admitting at this point,